Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Janine Haller Abernethy. I'm with the Colorado State Employee Assistance Program. And joining me today are Simone Sutton and Kelly Bethke, both with Cigna. And they're going to share some information with us today about sleep. Before we jump into that, I just want to remind you that CSEP is your internal EAP provider. And whenever possible, we partner with other organizations associated with state government to provide well-being webinars like this to you all. We're also available to you for EAP services, including mental health counseling. So as we're working through the content and the information, if any of this is spurring you to think it could be helpful to have some mental health support, please reach out to us at CSEP. I'm going to turn things over to Simone Sutton, and then she'll hand off to Kelly Bethke.
Thank you so much, Janine. Hello, everyone. I'm just going to be giving a brief overview before Kelly talks a little bit more about the topic today, but I'm just going to give a brief reminder of the wellness programs that you have available to you as a Cigna member, and then also some of the wellness resources that are available to the whole state population as well. Next slide, please. So number one reminder, preventive care. So even though we think we're super healthy, we don't need to go to the doctor, right? You still do. Every year you should be seeing a primary care provider, develop that relationship, find somebody that you like, that you trust. It's important to get your blood work done every year, get your vaccines, get your cancer screenings, dependent on your age and risk factors. So we just want to throw that reminder out there, and it's 100% covered by your insurance. No matter what plan you have, it's 100% covered as preventive care. And you want to make sure you find an in-network provider or facility. You could do that on mycigna.com or through our mobile app. And then also want to highlight here under preventive care that we do have the partnership with Everside Health Clinics, and they're a great resource. Most of the services they provide to state employees are no cost. A lot of people don't know that. So that's a great way to get your preventive care, and they do acute care, and they even offer virtual care as well. So that's a really great resource that a lot of state employees love. Next slide, please. So life is busy, right? It feels like today more than ever, it's just getting more and more hectic and demanding of our time. You don't always have the time to leave the house or work or wherever you are. You have so many places to be, so many things to take care of. So the last thing on your mind sometimes is going to the doctor. So I totally understand that. And especially for behavioral health, sometimes, people feel afraid or embarrassed to go. So we're trying to remove that stigma as well. And you could do that through virtual care that we have. And with the state plans, I just want to throw this reminder out there that if you're on one of the copay plans, all behavioral health is covered at 100%. So that includes outpatient, inpatient, or virtual behavioral health care. Next slide, please. So with virtual care, this is a great option for you to get your preventive care or to address minor medical issues. They also do pediatrics as well, so you could do that without leaving the house. Just to give a quick example here, my husband, with work and with life, he doesn't like to prioritize going to the doctor like some people do. So I have him do his preventive care through MD Live, which is our virtual care provider. And he just has to go to our local Walgreens down the street. He gets his blood work done there. They send it to the virtual care doctor. And when he has his appointment, they can review all the blood work there too. So that's really nice. And through MD Live, we also offer dermatology as well. That's added this year. So that's pretty cool that you could do that through virtual care. Next slide, please. And here's just a list of some of the things that can be treated through virtual care. So just a great reminder that you can use if it's the middle of the night or you just really don't feel like leaving the house and you have one of these things, you can utilize virtual care for it. And you can access that through mycigna.com. Everside Health also has virtual care, so you could use it through them as well. Next slide, please. All right. And then here I just want to highlight the cost factors. So you'll see for Everside Health, no matter what plan you're on, a lot of services are covered at no cost to you. So it's just a really, really great resource that you have as a state employee. And then for behavioral care, they do provide Everside is at the state capitol site on Thursdays from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. if that's convenient for you. And then you'll see for the Cigna MD Live platform that you can access through mycigna.com. You'll see the costs associated there. So if you're on one of the copay plans, it's a $20 flat fee. And if you're on one of the high deductible health plans, it's a $55 flat fee. Right. And then this really highlights our behavioral health care. So CSAP should really be your first primary option if you need to access your medical benefit. For behavioral health, this slide really breaks it down. So you'll see all these virtual providers on the screen there listed next to that picture. So there's Talkspace, there's Maru Health, MD Live, Sondermind, Ginger, No CD, Brightside, Monument, and all these different providers offer different levels of support. So some have 24/7 chat functions that you could utilize. Some focus on substance use. Um, some focus on alcohol treatment therapy. So they have different purposes for sure. And you could find more information about this on mycigna.com as well. But then also just to highlight here again, because we get this question all the time, if you're on the copay plan, you can use any of these services as well as access any behavioral health care at no cost. There's no copay, there's no coinsurance, there's no catch. It's really just no cost if you're on the copay plan. And if you're on the high deductible plan, you could get, use CSAP. We have no cost counseling sessions available through Cigna as well that you can access on MyCigna. And then some of the providers like iPrevail and Happify, they're more of a gamified approach just to check in with your mental health, and those are available at no cost if you're on the high deductible plan. Okay. And then here's just a breakdown, just in case you want to refer to this slide at a later date. This really breaks down what the different providers offer. So as I mentioned, some do video, some use text, some will help find you availability with a behavioral health provider if you need help. So they all offer really different programs. So you could dive more into this on MyCigna, or in the chat, I'll write our email address too, just in case you have any wellness-related questions. You can email us, and we monitor that inbox for state employees. It's only for state employees, and we'll get back to you. Right, so Motivate Me. So this is our current wellness platform, and there's also State of Health too that you can use to earn your points towards your premium reduction. We kicked off State of Health last year, but Motivate Me is still in place that you can utilize, and this is for Cigna and Kaiser members to take advantage of. So if you, just by completing some very simple tasks, whether it's visiting your doctor, getting your flu shot, participating in the fitness challenge that we actually have going on right now. There's a number of different things. Depending on your health journey, where you are, you could pick the goal that fits best for your wellness journey, and you can earn points for it. And when you get 240 points, that goes towards your premium reduction of $20 off per month. And so that would take place next plan year. So you complete the points now, you have until June 15th, and then you would get $20 off per month off your premiums for the next plan year. And you can take advantage of this on mycigna.com, and that's as a Kaiser member or a Cigna member. Right, and then here's the MyCigna. We just included some screenshots just to kind of help you out if you've never been on there. How do you get started? So if you're a Cigna member, you can use your Cigna ID number on your insurance card to create an account. If you're a Kaiser member, there is a number that you could call. You could use your social security number, or you can email us at the email address that I'll type in the chat, and we can get you your specific Cigna ID number. So even Kaiser members have a state-issued Cigna ID number that you can use to register an account. And then navigating my Cigna, just a couple reminders here on the site. If you're a Cigna member, you can search for your providers on here. You can see if they're in network. There's a lot of different filters. You could filter by language, by gender. There's a lot of different ways that you can specify what kind of provider you're looking for. And then for some providers, it'll estimate the cost for you. You can review claim and coverage information. And then, of course, for wellness, you could go on there and you can view all your goals where you can earn your points towards that premium reduction I was talking about. Those are just screenshots of the site there. Okay, and then this program, I think it's so great. I used it when I was pregnant with my little one, and quite a bit of state employees are starting to catch on and use the program. It's such a great incentive while you're pregnant. Sometimes you don't want to call your doctor for every little thing that's going on, but you can call us, and we have special maternity nurses that will talk to you about any of the questions that you may have, and there's an incentive for participating. So if you enroll in your first trimester, and this is as a Cigna or Kaiser member, if you enroll in your first trimester, you could get $150 after you have your baby, and then $75 if you enroll in your second trimester. So it's best if you enroll as early as possible. And if you're a Kaiser member, the process is a little bit different. So as a Cigna member, you would just call the number on the back of your ID card and then say that you're interested in healthy pregnancies, healthy babies. But if you're a Kaiser member, there is a form that you can get on the Kaiser website that you would have to get filled out by your doctor in order to earn the incentive. And you would have to submit that form to that Colorado Wellness at Cigna.com inbox that I put in the chat to get your gift card. And it's just a Visa gift card that you could use towards absolutely anything. So it's a great incentive. And then last but not least, our healthy rewards. If you're a Cigna member, you can take advantage of this. We offer gym membership discounts. It's $25 a month, and that's for thousands of gyms are in that network that you can utilize. We have Daily Burn, which is they offer on-demand videos as well, and that's about $15 per month. We offer discounts on Fitbits and a bunch of different wellness products, so you can find out more about that on mycigna.com as well. So just wanted to highlight some of the underutilized benefits and programs that you have as a Cigna member or as a state employee. And then now I'm going to turn it over to Kelly Bethke.
Thank you, Simone. That was a wonderful overview. I appreciate you joining and sharing that with everyone. Can you just confirm that you are able to hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Okay. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining our wellness webinar today on the importance of sleep and rest. Janine gave a quick intro, but I'm Kelly Bethke. I am the on-site RN health coach with Cigna, and I have been dedicated to the state of Colorado for almost 4 years now. So I appreciate the opportunity to meet with you this afternoon. So for the rest of the 45 minutes or so that we have together, we're going to talk about the importance of getting enough quality sleep. And here's an overview of the topics we're going to cover today. Feel free to ask questions in the chat feature or use the Q&A feature as they entered in the chat just before we got started. So feel free to use that as we move through the presentation, and then I'll check back at the end if there are any questions, and hopefully I'll be able to answer those for you. So first, this may not come as a surprise to you all, but according to the CDC, more than a third of American adults are not getting enough sleep on a regular basis. The general recommendation for a healthy sleep duration is between 7 and 9 hours for adults. Scientists may not fully understand the role of sleep or its mechanisms, but we do know the many benefits of sleep and the risks related to the lack of sleep. Sleep has an important impact on almost every system of the body and enables the body and mind to rejuvenate, re-energize, and restore. Sleep protects our mental health, our physical health, our quality of life, and even our safety. and it plays an important role in our ability to function every day. Sleep is particularly important for brain function because during sleep, the brain is able to perform restorative tasks as well as form new brain pathways to help you learn and remember information. Getting enough quality sleep assists in clear thinking and focus, as well as regulating mood and emotions. Sleep helps with repairing tissues, like all tissues of the body and our nerve cells. It can also assist with supporting hormonal balance, building muscle, can support our immune function so we have healthy immunity, as well as help to reduce pain. And we'll talk later in the presentation about the consequences of not getting enough sleep and how it can impact our health. So next, apologies about that. Get my mouse right. Next, we're going to briefly talk about the stages of sleep. So you may probably know REM stands for rapid eye movement. So this is just a very brief overview, but our sleep cycle begins with non-REM sleep, followed by a shorter period of REM sleep, and then the cycle repeats itself. And there are 3 stages of non-REM sleep, and each stage may last between 5 to 15 minutes. Once all 3 stages of non-REM sleep are complete, you move into the REM sleep, which usually happens about 90 minutes after you fall asleep. And this is the deep sleep where our dreaming tends to occur. So people usually cycle through these stages of the non-REM and REM sleep 5 to 7 times per night. And this is why experts say that we need between 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night, as it takes about that much time for us to cycle through non-REM and REM sleep 5 to 7 times. So some people wake up in the middle of the night after they've completed a sleep cycle, and this can be normal. But what isn't good is when you can't get yourself back to sleep to move through all of the stages. So we'll talk about sleep promoting strategies later on in the presentation if you are someone that experiences this, frequently waking up through the night. So also very briefly, we'll touch on the circadian rhythm and the hormone melatonin. So it is important to understand that we all have a circadian rhythm, which is also called the body's 24-hour biological clock or our sleep-wake cycle. And our 24-hour circadian rhythm cycle can be affected by different factors such as lightness or darkness. And it can make the body think it's time to sleep or to wake up. So it also controls functions such as body temperature, controls some functions within the immune system, and also hunger hormones. So problems with our sleep-wake cycle can be linked to a hormone called melatonin. So again, a really brief overview, but melatonin levels typically rise in the mid to late evening hours, remain high for the night, and begin to drop in the early morning hours. Light affects how much melatonin is produced or reduced, which is why exposure to too much daylight or specifically artificial light later in the evening can affect the levels of melatonin. Also to note, natural melatonin can tend to decrease with aging, so it can be another risk factor for us as we age. And if you're exposed to artificial light in the evening, your body may be making less melatonin than it needs. So some people, such as those who can't fall asleep until very late and those who go to bed very early, have circadian rhythms that are just different from those of most people. Other people with sleep problems may have regular circadian rhythms, but they have to adjust them to new situations, such as working an evening or a night shift, which we'll discuss a bit later in more detail. So every person is different, and therefore how much sleep you need depends on a variety of factors, even including how much sleep you obtained on previous days. And research can't exactly pinpoint specifically the amount of sleep you need at different ages, but in general, the table that you see serves as a rule of thumb guide. And again, as I mentioned, adults generally need between 7 to 9 hours. Let's move on and talk about what can interfere with our sleep. So, we do know that there are some over the counter and prescription medications that can affect our sleep. A few examples of medications that can cause potential side effects, such as insomnia and sleepiness, are diuretics, corticosteroids, and antidepressants. There are some cold medicines over the counter, such as decongestants, that may keep you awake and are usually best taken during the day versus at night. The main side effect for an antihistamine is drowsiness, so it's probably best to not take that during the day, but maybe take that later in the day or in the evening time. Keep in mind that some over the counter pain medications may include caffeine, so we just need to be sure to read the ingredient list carefully. And of course, consult your primary care provider and or your pharmacy or your pharmacist on all potential side effects of the medications you're prescribed and even over-the-counter drugs if you're not sure, including supplements. And again, just be sure to read your prescription information as well when you receive it. And then you can decide when it's best to take them if they could interfere with sleep, or you may have to experiment a little bit with the time that you take them. Just a couple more things that can impact our sleep. So probably pretty obvious are the nicotine and the caffeine. So we know nicotine is, which is in tobacco products, is a strong stimulant. But also keep in mind that smoking over a long period of time can increase the prevalence of respiratory disorders, which can further impact or interrupt your sleep. We all know caffeine is also a stimulant and it is processed by the liver. And it can take about 5 to 7 hours to eliminate half of it from your body. So think about that. If you're someone who has a couple cups of caffeine, whether it's coffee or tea or an energy drink, in the morning, it generally won't interfere with your sleep at night. But if you consume caffeine later in the day, especially if it's in higher amounts, remember it can take that 5 to 7 hours to just eliminate half of it from your body. So it can interfere with your sleep if you're drinking it later in the day. So most people, the rule of thumb would be to try not to drink caffeine at least 6 hours before bed, but some people might need even longer. I'm one of those people. I need at least 8 hours, or it can really interfere with my sleep. So why is alcohol on there? Well, alcohol can inhibit entering the REM sleep cycles, which can result in us not completing those necessary sleep cycles. So we can wake up not feeling rested, even if we feel that we have slept, consistently through the night. And also, as I mentioned, supplements earlier, some herbal supplements can actually contain stimulants. So it's something else to check out. So just a really brief overview of the sleep disorder, sleep apnea. So this is a very basic description, but apnea is where breathing repeatedly stops and starts throughout the night. So with each apnea event, the brain briefly arouses people in order for them to resume breathing, but consequently, sleep is extremely fragmented and of poor quality. So again, back to it interrupting those sleep cycles. The vast majority of people who have sleep apnea remain undiagnosed and therefore untreated, despite the fact that it can be a serious disorder and can have significant consequences. If untreated, sleep apnea can lead to conditions like high blood pressure and even other cardiovascular problems like heart disease. It can lead to memory problems, weight gain, and things like headaches. Untreated sleep apnea may be responsible for job impairment and even motor vehicle crashes. Fortunately, sleep apnea can be diagnosed and treated. And there are several treatment options available. So if you have any concerns, talk to your PCP. A lot of people don't think of talking to their PCP about sleep when they go in for their wellness exam, but it's absolutely something that you can talk to your PCP about, especially if you think you might be somebody who is waking up through the night or having cessation in your breathing through the night. And so For some people, they can undergo a sleep study, and many of those can now be completed from the comfort of your own home. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about shift work sleep disorder. So, working at night or irregular shifts can keep you from getting enough quality sleep. Not everyone that works odd hours has shift work sleep disorder, but those that do have higher rates of missing work and even accidents related to sleepiness. So, higher instances of those compared to night workers without the disorder. Some shift workers who are sleep deprived may develop problems with memory and have a hard time focusing because remember, when we sleep, it helps us store memories and it helps us with focus and attention and clarity. They also may be at a greater risk for conditions like depression and others that you see here on the slide, GI disorders like stomach ulcers, insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, and heart disease. Um, Here are just a couple tips, and we're going to talk later just about strategies in general for how to improve quantity and quality of sleep. So, specifically for those with shift work disorder who just do work different shifts or rotating shifts, if you can, try not to work too many shifts in a row, night shifts in a row. You're more likely to recover if you can limit those night shifts back to back and schedule days off in between. And if you can, try to avoid frequently rotating shifts. And if you can't, it's actually easier to adjust to a schedule that rotates from day shift to evening shift, then to night shift, followed by days off rather than the reverse, rather than starting with the night shift and then having to rotate to evenings or days. Try to avoid long commutes after you're working a night shift or evening shift or a long shift. We know that there are some state of Colorado employees that have mandated overtime and they're working really long shifts and they might have a long commute home. So just be really careful if you do live farther away that you try to do the best that you can, either to avoid those long commutes or maybe you need to take a little break after your shift before you head home. As we mentioned before, try to limit caffeine. That could disrupt the time that you're actually needing to fall asleep. If you can, try to avoid really bright light on your way home after your shift. It'll make it easier for you to fall asleep once you hit the pillow because, again, remember that bright light can impede that melatonin production. And I know this may seem really difficult for some people, but if you can try to stick to a regular sleep wake cycle, that can really help. And we'll talk a little bit more about some strategies for that and having a sleep routine. Just being conscientious too of your environment. If you're somebody who works night or evening shifts, if you have to sleep during the day, you may have to get blackout blinds or use an eye mask or something like that and set up your environment so that you're able to get good sleep during the day. Okay, so we're going to move on and talk about some of the health concerns related to lack of sleep and disorders in a little bit more detail. So, if you consistently, night after night, can't find a way to get a good night's sleep, again, as I mentioned, a next best step could be talking to your PCP so that it doesn't turn into a long term chronic sleep loss problem or an actual disorder. So, most of us have probably heard of insomnia. So, it is a diagnosable disorder that is characterized by difficulty falling asleep and or staying asleep. So people with insomnia can have one or more of these symptoms. Probably pretty obvious, but the first one is difficulty falling asleep, typically when it takes more than a half hour. They may also wake up often during the night and have trouble falling back asleep. Perhaps they just wake up really early in the morning and then they can't get back to sleep. I hear that one frequently when I meet with my coaching customers. They may feel exhausted or really tired when they wake up, even if maybe they thought they had a full night's sleep, but they wake up feeling really tired and they're not sure why. So keep in mind that you can have acute insomnia, which could last for, let's say, a night to a few weeks. However, insomnia that can be diagnosed as chronic can be where you are having issues sleeping or meeting this criteria at least 3 nights a week for at least a month. And we talked about sleep apnea, we talked about the sleep shift disorder or night shift disorder, but a chronic insomnia can also be caused by conditions like depression or anxiety or chronic stress, pain or discomfort at night. And then there can be other factors as well. So, because long term sleep deprivation or insomnia can lead to numerous negative health effects, again, I can't say it enough. If you think that you might be at risk, really important to bring this up with your primary care provider. Okay, so let's talk just a little bit more about sleep deprivation effects. So, first of all, when we don't sleep well at night, as I mentioned earlier, our brain can't form memories from our experiences we encounter during the day. So, because sleep helps the brain commit new information to memory, it helps us with that memory consolidation. So, in order to learn, you have to give your brain the time and sleep to form memories and make connections in your brain. Lack of sleep can lead to poor decision making, and that can affect your weight. So, just think about some of these impacts. So, whenever we don't sleep well, you can even ask yourself right now, have you ever made certain decisions because you were tired and you didn't sleep well the night before, or several nights before that, or over a longer period of time? So, how many of us, when we're really tired and we didn't sleep well, think, oh, I'm absolutely going to go to the gym today? That may be one of the best things we can do, but a lot of times we're tempted to skip that exercise or going to the gym or that walk because we feel too tired or we have a lack of motivation and energy. And we may be more at risk to get takeout or fast food for our meals instead of cooking, right? We may be at risk for late night snacking. Maybe we just eat too large of portions. And sometimes the foods that we choose when we're tired or we just don't have the energy to cook can be those that are higher in carbs and sugar or unhealthy fats. So, another big problem with sleep loss is that it significantly affects your metabolism and weight. So, sleep loss can actually change the level of hormones we secrete that affect our appetite. The hunger hormone that signals the brain when you should eat typically decreases when you sleep. The fullness hormone signals the brain when you're satisfied by food and you don't need to keep eating, and that's typically increasing when you sleep. However, in people who are sleep deprived, especially over a longer period of time, these hormones can actually reverse production. So you can become hungry when you don't need to eat, when you're not truly, physically needing calories, and it can cause you to not stop eating when you should feel full, right? So overeating, larger portions. Um, so think about that. That for a lot of people is new information. So it kind of also can make sense for people like, gosh, I've never made that connection before with having, sleepless nights or feeling really tired and noticing that I've been gaining weight or noticing that I feel like I have a harder time controlling my portions or eating when I feel like I'm truly not hungry. So, obviously, that being said, if you're having this hormonal imbalance, it can lead to unwanted weight gain. And then, of course, puts you at risk for other issues related to obesity. So for one example, probably the more obvious one that you see on the slide here is, chronic sleep loss and obesity impairs the body's ability to use insulin, and that can lead to the onset of diabetes. We'll talk a little bit more about a few other sleep deprivation effects. Let's talk about mood. This is relevant since we're presenting for CSAP. So ask yourself this: how do you feel and respond to others or situations when you don't get enough sleep. So think about that. Maybe there's one word you'd say, but I would probably say I feel more irritable or more impatient, more easily angered or bothered. I feel that I have less of an ability to control my mood and my emotions and even my response to people. So think about that the effects really can be on how we communicate with other people or relate to other people. Um, some studies have even shown that the risk of occupational injury can be twice as high when we're sleep deprived because remember, lack of sleep can lead to difficulty focusing on tasks and remaining attentive. Um, as I mentioned before, chronic sleep loss can increase your risk of developing chronic conditions such as heart disease. Uh, One risk factor for heart disease is developing high blood pressure. So, blood pressure and heart rate vary throughout the day, but are lowest when we sleep. Upon waking, our blood pressure increases immediately, whether you have normal or high blood pressure. So, if these sleep patterns persist, you are essentially making your heart work harder, longer hours day after day, meaning when you're not getting enough sleep, you are working your heart harder. And so, overworking your heart like that over a longer period of time can permanently damage the blood vessels in your heart, which then can lead to high blood pressure. And then it can put you at risk for things like heart attack and stroke and even death, which sounds pretty scary, doesn't it? So, allowing your heart adequate rest from daily activities, that could cause an increase in blood pressure, makes a difference in the health of your heart and your blood vessels. Also, maybe something that we don't think about on that detailed level. So, really quickly, I know we reviewed the symptoms of insomnia earlier. However, how do you really know if you may be at risk for insomnia? If you may not be getting quality sleep, some people track their sleep. They have a Fitbit or a smartwatch or some device, or even a phone app where you can monitor your sleep. I can't speak as an expert on the effectiveness of these devices, but with technology always advancing and improving, I think that there are, some devices that do track um, whether it be your heart rate or they're tracking other vital signs or movement. I think these devices can be helpful for some people. So that's one way that you might be able to really look and see, okay, I think I slept, or from the time I think I closed my eyes to when I woke up or my alarm went off, I slept about 8 hours. But here are a few other telltale signs, just a little checklist of something that you can review with me right now to see if maybe you are at risk for insomnia or just not getting enough quality sleep. Okay, so the first criteria is you regularly wake up more than once per night. Okay, so just that alone, without having the difficulty of getting back to sleep, wouldn't necessarily probably meet the criteria for insomnia, but just something to think about. If you wake up regularly more than once per night and you lie awake for more than 20 minutes, then that's when it can be more of a risk because let's say you only allotted 7 hours for you from the time you fall asleep to when you have to get up and you're waking up and you're awake for more than 20 minutes, you might not be getting through those 5 to 7 cycles. That is another criteria is that you lie awake for more than 20 minutes. You feel tired and have difficulty concentrating during the day. I think that alone can be tough because there certainly can be a lot of other reasons, other risk factors, other chronic conditions that can make us feel tired or have difficulty concentrating. Even, conditions like depression, anxiety, high stress, that can certainly affect us and our ability to concentrate. So, again, though, collectively with all of these different criteria, could be alerting you that maybe you are having some difficulty with lack of sleep. More criteria, a couple other items is that maybe you are noticing you're drinking more caffeine to stay alert. So because you're feeling tired during the day, you've just noticed that you're starting to increase your caffeine intake. What about physically? Could we have any symptoms? I think the probably most obvious one would be our eyes. So a lot of us, we probably experience this, that when we don't sleep well, our eyes can appear puffy or red, or even we can start to develop those dark under eye circles. And again, that by itself might not be specifically related to lack of sleep, but it certainly can be. As we talked about earlier, how about feeling hungry more often, especially craving junk food, higher carbs or higher sugar foods? And maybe we're gaining weight and we just aren't sure. Maybe we haven't made a lot of other changes with our diet or exercise, and we notice that we're gaining weight. Might be something to think about, and do a little inventory about how well you are sleeping. Again, as we talked about mood, you might feel more stressed out or emotionally exhausted or irritable or more angry than usual. So we don't always think that, it's connected to sleep. But just a couple thoughts about how you might be able to identify if you're at risk for lack of sleep or an actual sleep disorder like insomnia. Okay, so as a coach, I am very solution focused. So we're going to spend the rest of our time discussing strategies for improving sleep. So let's talk about routines because we're creatures of habit, right? So many of us may want to stay up late or sleep in on the weekends or our days off, but it is really best for us to try to maintain a similar sleep schedule every night if we can. So, following a regular pre sleep routine will be a cue for your mind to begin getting ready for sleep. And then your body and sleepiness may follow. So, set your routine and try to stick to the same time of winding down at night and getting up in the morning on your days off if you can. So perhaps I'll give you some ideas. So perhaps it's actually setting a bedtime alarm, maybe an hour before you want to be in bed. Maybe it's turning down the lights in the house, or especially turning off those if you have brighter lights or fluorescent lights, really dimming those lights. Maybe it's lighting some candles or having just the lamps on or the fireplace as it starts to cool down in our state. What about powering down our electronic devices and those alerts that pop up? And it can be, our computers, our tablets, our smartphones. Um, some people will implement a little routine, such as stretching or a relaxing meditation or taking a warm bath or shower. Maybe it's having some sleepy time tea. I hear that a lot in my coaching sessions and the groups that I lead. Another tip, something that maybe people don't think about, is your environment. So trying to reserve the bed for only sleep. So when we can, include activities like eating or making crafts or playing with the kids or the dog, that can deter your focus from sleep. So it really can be best if we really try to just designate the bed and the bedroom for sleep. Let's talk a little bit more about our environment. So, just, if we can, we really want to try to maintain those ideal sleep conditions. So, people also might not think of this initially, but can be helpful to declutter the room that you sleep in. And why do you think that might be? Well, clutter may prompt you to start cleaning or picking up or organizing when you should be focusing on winding down. It can be a bit of a distraction, right? And maybe it makes us feel a little irritated if it's messy. So we want to try to declutter and organize. So that's why it can be good to really set up, your bedroom for just really what you need for sleep. As we talked about, for those that might work different shifts, it can be best to try to eliminate or block out light and noises in the room as best you can. I know we can't always control noises outside of the room if we have kids or pets, or outside of our home if we have an attached home or an apartment or condo or just really loud neighbors. That can be tricky, but think about some solutions that would work for you. Um, get earplugs. And this might even be, noises right in the room, like a sleep partner who snores or breathes really loudly or just wakes up through the night and might wake you up. So a couple ideas for the noises is, earplugs, as I mentioned. You can find these Bluetooth headbands. So I have one, and it's just, wireless Bluetooth. It's a headband, and rather than having more of like a bulky earbud, it is flat. So it's pretty decently comfortable too. So I really like that. If I don't necessarily want to wear earplugs, sometimes those irritate me a little bit. I really like some of these inventive devices. So yeah, headbands, that's Bluetooth, and I can play white noise through it or some relaxing music or just try to really block out the external sounds. Some people like to use a fan in the room, or you can use an app. There's all sorts of apps to play white noise or, lots of different sounds, right? It's kind of wild when I'll look through some of these sleep apps and it'll be like the sound of a train. And I'm like, well, maybe that's relaxing to people, or the sound of the rainforest. So find what works for you. Everyone's different. But I really like white noise or some calming ambient music without strong beats or rhythms. Um, so even just, if you have devices in your room, the lights of the devices might bother you. So maybe you don't necessarily need to wear an eye mask, but maybe you need to dim, cover, or turn away the lights or the devices or your clock so that it doesn't distract you or bother you. And the body tends to prefer a cooler environment and a cooler temperature to sleep. So if the room is too warm, it can cause sweating or restlessness. The ideal temperature range is actually between 68 and 72 degrees. So now with these nice cool nights in most of the state, if you're able to have your windows open, it can kind of cool off your room a little bit. Um, and this may sound simple, but or maybe obvious, but it is important for us to invest in a bed that's comfortable for us and a pillow that's comfortable. And that might not always be in our budget, but there are creative ways, that we can find more affordable. Whether it's maybe not buying a new mattress, but maybe it is just adding an extra foam or gel topper, or even just like an egg crate or one of those padded mattress covers that might just make our environment or our mattress a little bit more comfortable. And maybe it's the position. So maybe it's, you don't have to buy a new pillow, but maybe it is changing the position of your pillow so that it's supporting your neck, or maybe it needs to, support your low back or your knees. So just really finding a comfortable position can be important too. Okay, so moving through here about being mindful. So, what does this mean? that, well, I hear this a lot in the groups I lead and individually with coaching clients, that a lot of people have identified, if they do have trouble falling asleep or they're waking up through the night, it's because they start worrying, or they can't turn their mind off, right? Their monkey mind. So they might be worrying about their to-do list or thinking about what happened that day, or having some anxiety or stress about, what's going on the next day. So, it is best if we can try to check our thoughts at the door, and do our best to avoid thinking I'm worrying. This is something a CSAP counselor could help you with, is creating a toolbox for what you can do when you find maybe you're worrying, or having these thoughts that are coming in that are hard to manage. So, one quick example, we're not going to get into too much detail about this, but one thing that can be helpful for people is if you have a pad of paper and a pen by your bed, and before you fall asleep, or if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're worrying, or a to-do from your list pops into your head, maybe jot it down really quickly. Maybe you just write down one word or a quick bulleted list. And if you can do that with minimal lighting, that would be best. But that way you can process it and get it down on paper, so that you don't have to continue worrying that it's something you'll forget about, or Some people like to even just, journal before bed to kind of get their thoughts out and to help their mind, process those thoughts so that they're not, swirling around and you're not thinking about it as you're trying to fall asleep or when you wake up in the middle of the night. Um, so again, something else that a coach or a CSAP counselor, therapist can help you with. Okay, and as we move through a couple of the last slides of our presentation today, we've got a couple more tips. So some activities to try to avoid if possible, and then some activities that can help improve our sleep. So what should we do? So a couple ideas and strategies of things we haven't talked about yet. So this one might surprise you, and it's not actually on the slide here, but one of my favorites is get exercise during the day. So if we can get exercise, even if it's walking, even if it's only for 5 or 10 minutes, but if we can get in some exercise in the morning and preferably outside, it can actually help to regulate our circadian rhythm so that our body is ready to fall asleep so that we, again, have that more regular circadian rhythm and we start producing melatonin at night when we're supposed to. So it might be kind of surprising, something you might not have thought of doing, but exercise in and of itself is one of the best things we can do for our health. But also, it can be important to get that in the morning. So sometimes for people too, just be careful if you get in a more intense workout or it's really, moderate cardio, so it's getting your heart rate up. If you get that in too close to bedtime, that also could maybe inhibit sleep. So that's another suggestion why getting your activity a little bit earlier. I mean, maybe it isn't doable for you to get it in first thing in the morning, but just another reason to be able to say, I can check this off my list because this was one of my goals anyway, and I can get in my walking or my activity in the morning and preferably outside if you're able to. And then you're also able to be, I don't know, depending on where you live, of course, but maybe be at least outside and maybe a little bit of nature. That can also be a great way to start your day. So what else can we do to help us fall asleep? Reading. I get this a lot in my group. A lot of people find reading before bed is calming, and it's just another signal to help you wind down. You're sending that message that reading is a part of your bedtime routine, and it can help you relax. Be careful, though. This could go over into the other category on the don'ts list, but choose your subject matter wisely. If you read action or thriller or mystery novels before bed, as I am very guilty of, it could actually be a little too stimulating, right? So you also have to be mindful of what you're reading. And also, what are you reading on? Are you reading on your phone, as I'm also guilty of doing? But I have the blue light filter on, so I also have an app where it has a night mode. So those are a couple strategies too. If you do read on a device, just also be mindful of that blue light from your device, or if you have notifications pop up too, that can be distracting. Something we might not always think about is what we're snacking on before bed and how that may impact our sleep. Obviously, I won't be getting into too much detailed information about it, but it really is best if we can try to have a healthy snack at bedtime if we are going to have a snack. Even our dinner, though, what we're eating for dinner can impact our sleep. So, of course, it's always best if we can have a good balance of our nutrients, so our carbohydrates to fats to proteins. But even in a bedtime snack, for some of us, if we have a meal that's too high in carbohydrates and sugars, especially if we don't have it with a healthy fat or a protein, it can impact our blood sugar, and this could impact our ability to fall asleep and or stay asleep. So just something to think about. I know we talked a little bit about bedtime routines and what some of us maybe do or what we could implement. Maybe it's not yoga, but maybe it's just some gentle stretching or some breathing exercises or a guided meditation, like a progressive muscle relaxation meditation where we're slowly scanning our body and relaxing our muscles. from our head to our toes or our toes up to our head. Um, Yoga Nidra is something that people will use. It's just a type of meditation. It's called yogic sleep, and it's just a conscious relaxation practice that can help induce total relaxation, so physical, mental, and emotional. And I love baths personally, so I like baths with Epsom salts. You could add a little lavender essential oils, which can be really calming. Some people even like listening to some music, maybe it could be all different types of music, whether it's classical or some binaural beats or kind of more spa music, I call it. So let's quickly go over to a few more of our activities to avoid. And I know we've only got a few minutes left here today, and I'm still watching the chat, and I'll check the Q&A before we finish here too to see if any questions came up. But we did talk about specifically what we eat at dinner can impact us, but I think it's probably obvious too, and we've probably experienced this once in our lives at least. If we have too big of a meal, what happens? It can interfere because we're digesting our food. If we have something too spicy or something that's deep fried, that could definitely cause some symptoms that might interfere with sleep. So something else, I know it says very blatantly, don't take naps. I don't think that's always the case. I think it's really individualized, but kind of the general rule about naps is trying to avoid napping for longer than 30 minutes and not napping too late in the day. I know lots of people, though, that can take naps as long as they want, even a couple hours before bedtime, and let's say they sleep fine. So it may be more those of us who are a little bit more sensitive to having trouble falling asleep or waking up that might just, not be able to take long naps or nap too late in the day. A couple other tips, too. So when I talked about the criteria for insomnia and how if you are laying awake for more than 20 minutes, the recommendation is that if you can't get to sleep or you wake up and it's for longer than 20 to 30 minutes, do something. Get out of bed. Do a guided meditation if you can. You don't always want to grab your phone right away, but if you have the ability to do something that's not on your phone, like reading a book or go to get a glass of water, that can be really helpful. And I believe we talked also about avoiding watching TV in bed. I think that was actually on the previous slide, and maybe I didn't touch on that, but that's something else too, kind of along the lines of saving the bedroom only for sleep, is, be careful of what we're watching. And ideally, it's maybe not in the bedroom, because think if we're, watching a suspenseful Netflix show and we have the ability to watch multiple episodes, if we have that on in our bedroom, could that deter us from sleep that we want to keep going and continue to watch? So I'm going to go ahead and look at our Q&A really quick as we have reached the end of our presentation for today. Here's just a couple resources at the end. So I do have a question about a partner who works 24, sometimes plus hour shifts, and you're working the standard 9 to 5. It seems like our sleep routines are completely thrown off because of the inconsistency in general of who is home when. Is there a good way for us to both get better sleep? Oh, that's a tough question. So, I know definitely, having a partner who has a completely different schedule than us can be a big challenge. But perhaps implementing some of the tips when we were talking about sleep environment. So, think about what it is maybe that's waking you up. Is it that, your partner is going to bed at a different time than you? So maybe it's, getting a mattress that doesn't provide as much movement when someone gets in or out of bed. Like I know those kind of hybrid or foam mattresses tend to maybe not be as like bouncy, so it's like more stable. So maybe it's that you have to have a sleep mask, as if your partner's maybe coming in and they're turning on lights or the lamp. Maybe it is that you could benefit from something like I have with the Bluetooth headband, because maybe you need to block out noise and listen to something like that. So, I think that's a tough one. Something that I would recommend too is, maybe it's that you decide to get involved in coaching or a program like State of Health if you qualify, because that's when you can work with a coach and you can really, outline goals and strategies and get different ideas and kind of really work through what might work for you. So I know that was, not necessarily a concrete or succinct answer, but, maybe it's even having a conversation between the two of you about what they need and what you need. Maybe it's kind of coming to some sort of compromise of maybe, again, the environment of the room or something along the lines of that. But I think always like reaching out for support can be helpful too. So you really have somebody that you can talk this through with and create a plan like a coach or, even something like a counselor. So we have another question that came in. I have told my MD, so my provider, that I have insomnia, but it was not taken seriously. Should I find a new MD or go see a specialist? So I think, anytime we meet with a provider or a practitioner of some sort, who perhaps, we feel doesn't listen to us, I think it's, there's always an opportunity, to maybe try to bring this up again at the next appointment. And if you feel that the way you worded it was not taken seriously, maybe just didn't feel listened to, or maybe they felt that you didn't meet criteria or whatever it may have been, let's say that you have this conversation again and you feel that you're, not coming to a solution, then, I think I wouldn't say I recommend, but I think it's always an option to go, maybe consult with a different provider. And, as far as a specialist goes, it really depends also on your plan. So I happen to, of course, work for Cigna. But if you are looking for a specialist, sometimes it can be your primary care provider that does refer you out, or perhaps you can call always, the 800 number on your insurance card and speak with a guide who can talk to you about maybe what they would recommend, or give you an idea of if you can refer yourself, or if you need to be referred to a specialist. So perhaps, again, it's broaching the subject again and seeing if your provider can talk you through it and share your concerns that maybe, you weren't listened, didn't feel like they had listened, or maybe they didn't understand, or maybe they just truly thought that from what you've said, it wasn't concerning to them. And then if you just, aren't able to, I guess have a solution or have that come to a conclusion, then, I think, again, people always have the option of going to see a different provider. And again, that, 800 number with Kaiser or Cigna, they can, be really helpful in also helping you find a new provider. Or you can reach out to me since I'm a coach and I can help connect you with benefits as well. Let me look here. And of
Hey,
course, I know
Kelly.
that many probably jump off. Yeah.
Sorry, Kelly. Yeah, I'm just going to jump in. As the therapist, sometimes it's okay for me to speak the unspoken. With that first question about different sleep patterns, of course, for partners, oftentimes bedtime is time for intimacy. And so partners can be really reluctant to sleep in separate beds. However, sometimes that can be helpful just for managing sleep, and working with a therapist or coming up with a plan as a couple around how to manage intimacy can help you feel like you've got control essentially over both elements of the sleep complication that can come up for couples. And I really just wanted to push this idea of coaching. If you feel like your medical doctor isn't responsive, health coaching can be a great way to address things like sleep. There are also mental health therapists out there that are trained in cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, and that can be a great strategy as well.
Thank you, Janine. That was wonderfully stated and probably a bit more succinct. And I always appreciate, the perspective of a professional like yourself. So thank you. And I think there might have been one more question that came up in the chat.
Oh, it was regarding an Everside. What are the chances that Everside Health will expand their services to more rural Colorado? Currently, my nearest Everside provider is 50 miles from my home. So, yes, I do understand that that is a barrier, an obstacle for people who live in more rural areas and don't have a provider, in their near vicinity. So, what I will say about Everside, and I know this, still may pose as a barrier, but you can still enroll with Everside. And again, this is available to Cigna members. So you can enroll with Everside and you can actually have your first, they call it a consult or your first appointment with your provider virtually. And then again, you'd still, of course, need to elect what clinic is closest to you as your primary clinic and then meet with that provider virtually. And then, there is a lot that they are able to assist with virtually. So it may be that at some point, though, you would need to go in person. And so I do understand that might not be realistic for you to drive 50 miles. So yeah, I don't know. I know Everside is always, kind of collaborating and looking, at, if there is an opportunity to open any new clinics in new areas. But yeah, I don't have an idea right now if they have any locations in mind. But just keep in mind, you can still enroll, meet with your provider virtually, and then kind of go from there. Other questions that I can answer for you? Really do appreciate everyone joining in today. I appreciate the opportunity to spend the afternoon with you. Thank you again to Janine for hosting us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kelly, for this great overview and tips. And I just want to, reinforce this idea of preventative care. I feel really proud. I just took care of my wellness appointment a couple of weeks ago. And the idea about having a sticky pad or a notepad near bed is something that I personally use as well. And it's something that I recommend to clients. If you've got ruminating thoughts or random thoughts floating around that are getting in the way of sleep, just writing them down and essentially purging those thoughts can be super helpful at helping you fall back asleep. So great tips, great information, and I appreciate folks joining us today.
Yes, thank you again, Janine and everyone, and to see you on another webinar in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. You all have a great day, and we'll be offering another Cigna webinar in December, and we've got additional webinars posted on our CSEP website, so please check that out. Have a great day, and thank you again, Kelly, for being with us.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.